The house stood at the end of Briar Lane, forgotten and forlorn. Its paint peeled like sunburned skin, a pale and sickly yellow. The windows, like vacant eyes, stared out blankly, veiled in years of dust. The old house leaned slightly, its foundation cracked, whispering secrets to the overgrown weeds below. Briar Lane itself was a forgotten path, claimed back by nature, choked with weeds and shadowed by gnarled ancient trees. The silence there was heavy, burdened with unseen things, undisturbed by human laughter or the sound of passing cars. The house had stood empty for years, a testament to misfortune and forgotten dreams. Locals whispered tales of a family lost to tragedy, their sorrow echoing within the walls. But these were just whispers, lost in the rustling leaves and the eerie stillness that clung to the house on Briar Lane. No one dared to approach the old house, let alone step inside. It stood alone, shrouded in an unsettling silence, waiting. John Roberts, his wife Mary, and their two children, 10-year-old David and 7-year-old Annie, arrived on a sweltering summer day. They were city dwellers, seeking refuge from the concrete jungle, yearning for a simpler life. John, a freelance writer, was captivated by the house's isolation, the promise of peace and quiet for his work. Mary, a kindergarten teacher, saw potential in its spacious rooms and the sprawling yard for her children to explore. David, a typical 10-year-old, remained oblivious to the unsettling atmosphere, more interested in the tangle of trees behind the house, promising adventures and secret forts. But Annie, sensitive and quiet, felt a shiver crawl up her spine as she stepped out of the car. The air hung heavy, thick with humidity and an unspoken tension. The silence was broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant caw of a crow. Annie clung to her mother's hand, her gaze drawn to the house's darkened windows, feeling a presence that sent shivers down her spine. The first few days were filled with the chaos of unpacking and settling in. John, ever the optimist, brushed off the house's quirks, attributing the creaking floors and rattling windows to its age. Mary, though slightly unnerved by the isolating silence, busied herself with transforming the dusty rooms into a home. One evening, while the adults unpacked boxes downstairs, Annie sat alone in her new room, a cavernous space with faded floral wallpaper and a single dusty window. The last rays of the setting sun cast long shadows across the room, making the familiar shapes of her toys seem alien and strange. That's when she heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible, like the rustling of leaves just outside her window. She went to investigate, peering into the growing darkness, but found nothing. Back in her room, she heard it again. This time it was clearer, a whisper, close to her ear. "Annie!" Her heart pounded. She looked around the room, but it was empty. The whispers continued, soft and insidious, weaving around her like cobwebs. "Annie, come play with us, Annie." Annie, her eyes wide with fear, ran to her parents. "There's something whispering to me," she cried. "It said my name." Her words were met with concerned but skeptical looks. John, ever the pragmatist, searched the room, finding nothing. "It's just the wind, sweetheart," he reassured her. "Old houses creak and groan." Mary, though unconvinced, tried to soothe her daughter's fears. But the whispers persisted. They seemed to seep from the very walls themselves, growing louder, more insistent. Even David, initially dismissive, grew quiet and withdrawn, claiming to hear scratching sounds behind his walls at night. The house seemed to close in around them, its silence no longer peaceful, but heavy with unspoken words and unseen eyes. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread, a feeling that they were not alone. John, his usual optimism shaken, started to see the house for what it truly was. Not a charming antique, but a decaying monument to a forgotten tragedy, its sorrow seeping into their lives. As the whispers escalated to hushed voices, their words became clearer, laced with malice and despair. They spoke of pain, of loss, of a darkness that clung to the house like a shroud. Panic began to set in. John, determined to get his family out, packed their belongings in a frenzy. But the house seemed to resist their attempts to leave. Doors slammed shut on their own. Lights flickered and died. The air grew heavy, making it difficult to breathe. When the phone lines went dead, John made a desperate decision. They would have to leave on foot, find help in the nearest town. But as they gathered at the front door, a cold wind slammed it shut, the sound echoing like a cruel laugh. The house was alive, its anger palpable, its sorrow a suffocating presence. It had lured them in, promising peace, only to trap them within its decaying embrace. The Roberts family huddled together, their faces pale with terror, as the whispers swirled around them, growing louder, more menacing. The house creaked and groaned, its wooden bones shifting, its anger radiating outwards. Annie clung to her father, tears streaming down her face, the whispers echoing her own mounting fear. David stood frozen, his eyes wide with terror, as the scratching behind the walls intensified, as if something wanted to break free. John, his resolve crumbling, pulled his family close, a silent promise to protect them. But deep down, a chilling realization settled in his gut. They were trapped, caught in a nightmare, their dream of a peaceful life shattered by the whispers that echoed within the walls of the house on Briar Lane. The whispers continued, a chorus of despair, their words echoing in the suffocating silence. Forever. You'll be here forever. The house on Briar Lane had claimed its new victims.